we've a big crowd, which is great. Anyway, just for those of you who didn't hear me there, I'm Jackie Hayes. I'm the archivist with Limerick City and County Council, and I'd just like to welcome you all here. Thank you so much for such a great turnout. A special welcome to Minister Janice Sullivan. Thank you for attending. Mayor Kevin Sheehan and Professor Michael Hayes. It was about 7 years ago, I think, when we first started to think about the registers in Mount St. Lawrence and the fact that they were, such an incredible record, and what would we do with them? And from that time in 2008, we've done a website, we've had a conference, and we've digitised the entire cemetery. So finally tonight we have the big opus, the book at last. So it's my pleasure really tonight to be here with you all to finally get, I suppose it's the culmination of a great project really, the book, The City and Cemetery, the History of Mount St. Lawrence. So first of all, can I ask you to put your hands together for Mayor of Limerick, Councillor Kevin Sheehan.
Thank you very much. Can you all hear me? Yes. Pat Carney, can you hear me? Before I begin, I think it's extraordinary that coinciding with the worst recession this country has ever seen, some people came together and decided to write a book about a graveyard. I think about the coincidences there. Congratulations on what they've done, certainly. Minister, colleagues, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, as Mayor of Limerick City and County, I am delighted to welcome you all here tonight to the launch of City and Cemetery, a history of Mount St. Lawrence, Limerick, written by Matthew Potter, edited by Jackie Hayes, both of Limerick Archives. I want to extend a particular warm welcome to Deputy Janice Sullivan, Minister for Education and Skills, who is here to launch this fine publication. Here in Limerick, we are surrounded by reflections of our past, whether it is the medieval walls that once protected the city from invaders, or John Square, which reminds us of our wonderful architectural heritage. These monuments to our past are what bind people and places together. They represent a tangible link between Limerick's rich history and the people who live and work here. Mount St. Lawrence Cemetery is another such example. Irish people have always respected and venerated the dead. People take great care of their family graves and visit them often. They remember the anniversaries of their loved ones. Above all, funerals attract a large turnout and are often treated as a social event, especially in rural areas. People go to funerals, pay their respects to the deceased, comfort the living, and meet their friends and neighbours, and wash it down afterwards, of course. In the pages of this beautifully produced book we have gathered to launch tonight, you will read how generations of Limerick people, from city and county alike, buried their loved ones in this fine cemetery and afterwards remembered them by putting up headstones, visiting the graves, maintaining the graves, often with loving care, or just saying a little prayer. Mount St. Lawrence Cemetery and the stories surrounding those who are buried here contain vital links to our past, and therefore it is important that these stories and the final resting places of our citizens are documented. This is the latest project undertaken by Limerick Archives and Mary I in promoting this cemetery and its role in the history of our community. I would strongly encourage anyone who may have relatives buried here to make use of the online database of burials at this cemetery, which was launched during the past 18 months. The records contain the names, addresses, at time of death, ages, position in the grave, and dates of death of all those buried in the cemetery. Compiling this information and making it publicly available in one location is no mean feat. This new book further complements the Mount St. Lawrence Cemetery story. It acknowledges and documents the role played by one of Limerick's, indeed Ireland's, greatest burial grounds in the social history of this city and this county. I wish to congratulate Limerick City and County Council, Mary Immaculate College, for working together on the publication. And before I conclude, somebody has shown me, even though I spent an hour and a half rambling through the book this afternoon when I had some time, and thanks for making that possible by giving me the copy of the book at that time. But I was shown this evening a photograph of a family who were all buried up in Mount St. Lawrence, and an uncle of mine was married to one of them. So I have a connection in Mount St. Lawrence. More than just a passing interest. I have a connection, and I'm proud of that. Enjoy the evening.
The Limerick Museum and Archives it's part of the Community and Culture Directorate of Limerick City and County Council. So on behalf of that directorate, can I introduce you to Josephine Cotter-Coughlin.
Thanks, Jackie. Mayor, Minister, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to join with the Mayor of Limerick City in welcoming you here this evening to the launch of City and Cemetery, a history of Mount St. Lawrence, Limerick. As you know, this very fine publication has been written by a member of our own staff, Matthew Potter, and has been edited by Jackie Hayes, both of the Limerick Archives Department. As you know, Mount St. Lawrence is one of the most historic sites here in Limerick City and County. With an area of approximately 18.5 acres and 75,500 burials, it is one of Limerick's most important heritage sites. In this publication, we are able to read about the different facets of the cemetery's history, how it was founded in response to the Great Famine, that its design represented the most modern thinking on cemetery design at that time. The book also examines the types of grave markers and monuments found in this great cemetery, from the forest of small iron crosses to the vaults that lie towards the centre of the cemetery. This book, as you can all appreciate, is the culmination of a number of years of hard work, and I suppose is, as the Cathaoirleach Mayor has already said, the final part of a major project between Limerick City and County Council and Mary Immaculate College. The work began in 2008, and this project has gone from strength to strength. It was supported by the Archives Department, the IT Department and the Environment Department of Limerick City and County Council. Over a number of years, the sustained support has ensured that this project has succeeded in meeting the objectives set by the project team. First in digitising the register, last year in mapping the headstones, and this year the publication of this beautiful book. Mary Immaculate College have been wonderfully committed to the project from the start. I want to thank Michael Hayes, President of Mary Immaculate College, and the staff, and indeed the undergraduate and postgraduate students who all contributed to the work and sustained the partnership throughout this significant period. This book is an immense contribution to public history, resting on solid academic foundations, but is accessible and meaningful to our community here in Limerick. I'd like to congratulate each and everyone associated with the publication of the book. Matthew Potter himself, first and foremost, Jackie, the staff in Limerick City and County Council, and Mary Immaculate College who worked on the book. You should all be very proud of your major contribution and to the creation of a greater understanding of and appreciation of Limerick's history and heritage.
Thanks, Josephine. Well, Mary Immaculate College has always made, I think, a great contribution to Limerick, and in recent years it has a really beautiful campus, and I think it has seemed to demonstrate a real appetite for engagement with the community, and we really appreciate that. So on behalf of Mary Immaculate College, can I introduce President Michael Hayes.
Mayor Sheehan, Minister O'Sullivan and invited guest, I was delighted to be asked to say a few words this evening at the launch of this important book, City and County. A book that marks a joint project between Limerick Archives and our college, Mary Immaculate College. The opportunity to dovetail the efforts of a third-level institution and a local authority in pursuit of a common goal does not often present itself. We are particularly fortunate in Limerick in this regard. This launch of the excellent study of Mount St. Lawrence Cemetery by Dr. Matthew Potter is actually the culmination of a number of projects in which Limerick City and County Council and Mary Immaculate College, town and gown if you like, have come together in a particular successful partnership. First, there was the Ranks Flour Mill project, involving 3 cornered partnerships between the Limerick Archives, the MIC History Department and the Hunt Museum, led by a highly successful exhibition and an excellent publication on a subject dear to the hearts of many people in Limerick. The Mary Immaculate College Geography Department has recently published, in conjunction with the Council, a mapped analysis of the latest census of the city, an important publication. And this evening marks another stage in the ongoing Mount St. Lawrence project, in which the Council and the Geography and History departments at MIC have worked very closely together over a number of years. As the last resting place of so many of our people in Limerick, including my own family, over the past 160 years, rich and poor, young and old, Mount St. Lawrence has proved an ideal focus of our joint efforts as institutions located in and as individuals living, working and studying in Limerick. Tonight's event, in fact, is the culmination of many people's work drawn together so eloquently by Dr. Matthew Potter. As an academic institution, Mary Immaculate College has engaged with Dr. Potter and the Council in 3 main ways. First, the expertise of 2 departments involved was essential to the project, but it was also enhanced by our participation. We both gave and received in terms of the use of geographical information systems, mapping, the recording, analysis of personal memories, documentary historical research, and the administration of large-scale fieldwork. Secondly, it is clear that the project could not have been completed without the help of a real army of field workers, and I mean a real army. We estimate that in excess of 2,500 student hours were spent over the past 3 years in preparing much of the material that has contributed to this present study. And thirdly, of course, when we talk about town and gown, we must remember that the town comprises not only local government and administration, but the local communities of the city. The goodwill of the people of Limerick, whose family members and friends are buried in Mount St. Lawrence, were absolutely essential to the success of this project. And while I leave it to other speakers to give a more comprehensive expression of thanks, I must finish by recognising the input of those linked with Mary Immaculate College. And I want to sincerely thank our due to Dr. Helene Bradley-Davies, Dr. Maura Cronin, Dr. Ursula Callahan, who have coordinated the MIC end of the project, Dr. Tyg Maloney for his scholarly input, and Barbara McCarthy, Administrator of the Geography and History departments, who at all times ensure the smooth running of the project in Mary Immaculate College. Thank you very much.
And now can I introduce to you Dr. Helene Bradley-Davies, who's, I suppose, one of the foot soldiers from Mary I, as it's affectionately known, for the last number of years. Helene represents the Geography Department, which has been a key part of this project, as well as the historians, and there's always a bit of banter between us about the relative merits of the history versus geography, but it's been, I think, a great partnership. So on behalf of Mary Immaculate College and the foot soldiers really on the project, Helene Bradley-Davies.
Mayor Sheehan, Minister O'Sullivan, President Hayes, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure tonight to speak on behalf of the Mary Immaculate College team involved in the Mount St. Lawrence project. This team consisted of many hundreds of people. My colleagues, Dr. Maura Cronin and Dr. Ursula Callaghan, colleagues in the Department of Geography and the Department of History, staff in the Arts Office, in particular Barbara McCarthy, countless past and present postgraduates of both departments. Can I mention in particular here Marie Taylor and Paul O'Brien, who have been with us from the very beginning, and Margaret Brown, who prepared the maps for the City and Cemetry publication. And last, but certainly not least, over 500 undergraduate students of the Departments of Geography and History who have helped make Mount St. Lawrence a labour of love for all of us over the last 4 years. In 2012, when Ursula first approached the Geography Department about helping to document the grave inscriptions in Mount St. Lawrence, we jumped at the opportunity to get involved. Fieldwork is part of the DNA of every geographer, and this represented for our department and the college an opportunity on our own doorstep that we simply could not refuse. I can remember vividly the day I stood with a group of students in Mount St. Lawrence facing the front wall of the cemetery. As the students went about their tasks, I made the mistake of glancing over my shoulder. And I saw the thousands of grave memorials that lay ahead of us. One down, 7,799 to go. For a split second, I thought this may test even the most enthusiastic of geographers. Last Friday at about 4:45, I was in the cemetery again with 2 students, recording the inscriptions. But this time we were facing the back wall along the railway boundary. 7,799 inscriptions done, only 1 to go. I felt an enormous sense of satisfaction, not just on a personal level, but also on a communal level. We had done it. Why had I ever doubted it? For this project was never built on the work of 1 or 2 people, but rather on the work of hundreds of individuals from the college and from the council who gave their time freely and with genuine enthusiasm to document this wonderful resource. To borrow from the words of a well-known geographer, this book we are launching tonight was written from the field and from the archive, not from the armchair. It has often been said that the field is to geography what the archive is to history. The beauty of this project is that it brought these disciplines together, allowing students of both to learn from each other and to gain valuable skills associated with data collection, data interpretation, and data management. The educational value of this project cannot be overestimated. Mount St. Lawrence has proved to be an open-air laboratory or classroom par excellence. It has helped in demystifying textbook-driven knowledge and has enhanced students' understanding of key issues relating to class and status, life expectancy and mortality, to name but a few. It has also stimulated high levels of interest and motivation among our students by fostering active and deep learning. Essentially, our students have learnt by doing. They have actually engaged actively in their subjects, in the process becoming geographers and historians, as opposed to simply just students of geography and history. This project has allowed our students to leave a permanent marker or reminder of their studies in Limerick and to give something back to the city that they have made a temporary home in. It is now our responsibility as academics to ensure that the information they collected continues to be published and disseminated to a wider audience. To date, papers have been delivered at the Conference of Irish Geographers, the Economic and Social History Institute of Ireland, the International Cemeteries Colloquium in York, and of course the Beyond the Grave conference organised by Limerick Museum and Archives and hosted by Mary Immaculate College last April. As already has been pointed out, Mount St. Lawrence is the final resting place of 75,000 people. People who have helped shape this city that we live in today. Our core aim of this project has always been to make these people visible again, irrespective of their class and their gender. To see through the lichens and the erosion on the stones and to reconnect with the individuals in the burial register who have left us with no inscription. I spoke with a lady recently in the cemetery visiting the grave of her twin sister. A sister who she never knew, but a sister with whom she always felt connected. In the burial register, she was simply recorded as baby and then the family name. But her twin proudly told me her name was Rosario. She now had an inscription and she mattered. For me, this lady summed up why we have spent countless hours in Mount St. Lawrence and in the archives. To simply make every person buried there visible again, because they all mattered. In conclusion, I would like to thank a couple of people on behalf of Maura, Ursula and myself. This was a unique and visionary project, and while the ideas were good and strong, it took courage on the powers that be to trust, support and fund us. Namely, my own boss, Professor Des McCafferty, also Dr. Liam Chambers, heads of the Departments of Geography and History. I'd also like to thank Kieran Lahan, Paul Foley and Josephine Cotter-Coughlin in Limerick City and County Council. On behalf of the three of us, thank you. To Flann Haskett and his team, we would also like to pay particular thanks. Mount St. Lawrence is a beautiful, peaceful and tranquil place. Part of the reason for this is down to Flann and his team. They care deeply for this place, and were always willing and able to answer any questions that the staff or students had of them. I would also like to thank the staff and the patrons of the Munster Fair Tavern, who always gave us a warm welcome for coffee and a cake, irrespective of how mucky or wet we were. A big thank you also to Jackie and her team in the archives, and to Mihai and his team in the IT division of the Council for their constant professionalism, support and enthusiasm. This project truly was a group venture. And finally to Matt. Like all your scholarly works, Matt, this book is thoroughly researched and precisely documented. A fitting tribute to those interred in Mount St. Lawrence and to the families that cherish them. Thank you very much.
Hear, hear, Helene. Well said. Can I now introduce you to the author of City and Cemetery, my colleague, Dr. Matthew Potter, on whom we really lean in the archives for the quality of his scholarship. Dr. Matthew Potter.
Mayor Sheehan, Minister O'Sullivan, President Hayes, friends, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to say a few brief words of thanks to a number of people who were involved in this project. Obviously, again, I just want to reiterate my enormous gratitude to my colleagues in both Limerick City and County Council and Mary Immaculate College. And most of them have already been mentioned by name, so I just want to add my thanks to that. I also want to mention a few other people. I owe a great debt of gratitude to the oral history interviewers and interviewees who were listed in Appendix 1. To Jerry Griffin, the funeral director, sharing with me his encyclopedic knowledge of the Limerick way of death. Angela South and Ty Maloney for research conducted in the local newspapers. Those who contributed images. The staff of the Cemetry service, especially Flann Haskett and John Hayes, and a number of my colleagues who proofread drafts of the book. Mary Colleen Fitzgerald, Pippa Little, Lizanne Jackman, Nora O'Connor, Claire Punch and John Brosnan. And I suppose I also have a personal connection to Cemetry, as both my wife's grandparents and my own grandparents are buried there. And I think it has a special resonance for most Limerick people because of the fact that nearly all of us have ancestors buried there. And finally, I want to thank my beloved family for all the support. My wife Colette, who's here, and my daughter Anna, who's also here. My son Alex, who's not able to make it tonight. My mother-in-law Mary Tracy, and my brother Michael, who's actually taking the photographs and conducting the film. So researching and writing this book often took me away from my family, but they were usually patient and understanding. So thank you all very much.
And finally, can I introduce Minister for Education and Skills, Jan O'Sullivan, TD. We're delighted to have the Minister here tonight. She actually launched the first book in the series in 2012, Ranks, the Industrial Heart of Limerick City. So it's lovely to have you back to launch this one.
Good evening, everybody, Mayor, councillors, Professor Hayes, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to be back in the Glaze Street again. I think we also launched the Ranks book here a couple of years ago. And I just want to begin by saying what a fantastic book this is, and to pay tribute to everybody, to Jackie, to Matthew, to everybody in Mary Immaculate College who've done such a fine job. And if I could just single out Matthew Potter, because I think it's probably about 10 books at this stage, Matthew. And he's written fantastic histories of this very place, of the history of the mayors of Limerick and so on, and the council. He's also written a book about Limericks themselves, the actual Limerick. So just a very wide range of scholarship, but also very well researched, as has been just said. So I think in particular, Matthew deserves great credit. But I again want to refer to the town and gown, because I think it's great to see that cooperation between Mary Immaculate College and Limerick City Council and the archives, and to produce such a fine book that will have such a resonance for the people of Limerick. I mean, there's a couple of hundred people here, which is a fantastic turnout, but there are thousands of families all around Limerick for whom this book is going to mean so much, because they are the families who have people buried in the graveyard, who in many cases visit on a very regular basis, and that is very much a tradition of people who go to the graveyard and honour their family members who are buried there, and who I'm sure will be extremely interested in all of this. And I think the point that Dr. Bradley Davies just made about the fact that everybody is important, and that story about the woman who found her twin sister and was able to give her a name, it's just an example. But I think for so many families there are very personal stories around the cemetery at Mount St. Lawrence. I don't know how many people know this, but I actually feel I have a lot of authority in this area, because I was actually chair of the Cemeteries Committee when I was a member of Limerick City Council. There isn't a Cemeteries Committee anymore. I think John Gilligan is back there. He might remember that I actually was chair of the Cemeteries Committee at one stage. But one of the things we did when I was chair was that we visited all of the cemeteries in Limerick, and that included places like the Watch House Cross, where there's a cross in memory of people who died in the famine. It included Killalea Graveyard, which was the back of the houses. It included St. Michael's near the flats in Watergate, a whole variety. But obviously Mount St. Lawrence is the most significant graveyard that we have in Limerick. But one of the things we did as well when I was on that Cemeteries Committee was that we got into the chapel in the graveyard, and I understand that the Civic Trust are now doing work on it, which is great to know, because at the time we felt that it was very important to preserve it, and there's some beautiful green mosaics inside, and to preserve it and to restore it, I think, is extremely important as well. So I'm delighted that that is happening. I too would like to pay tribute to Flann Haskett, who has been presiding for so many years now, with great care and attention. And there were times when the cemetery needed an uplift, it needed work done on it, and always they were never found wanting, and indeed also in the personal touch in terms of dealing with families who are burying loved ones. And for many people, obviously, the memories are sad, but also I think it gives great comfort to people. And it contains, from the memorial to the Manchester Martyrs, the grave of the Bard of Thomond, Michael Hogan, very many celebrated and prestigious people, but also everybody else from Limerick as well. And it is a great leveller, I suppose they say that about graveyards, but certainly it is a home for all kinds of families. Many orations were made over the years as well. The last one I remember is Garroda Tuhig at the grave of Jim Kemmy, when Jim Kemmy was buried there. But many orations have been made over the years in the graveyard as well. But above all else, it is a place where 75,000 people, I think you said, are buried. Over 7,000 graves, 7,700 graves. So it's a place above all where people remember their loved ones, and it's fantastic that it's been so well documented now, and there is so much information for people to access, and to access easily and readily, and I think that's hugely important. Just one final thing, as Minister for Education, I'm delighted that it's been such an educational experience for the students of Mary Immaculate, and it has been a real rich learning experience, not just learning from textbooks, but actually going out there and experiencing and talking to people and gathering the information. So it is, as I say, a fantastic pleasure for me to be able tonight to be here to launch and to formally launch now the City and Cemetery, A History of Mount St. Lawrence, Limerick. Thank you very much, and well done to everyone.
Just to wind up, and before we get back to everything, I just have a few thank yous to make. If we can thank Dr. Maura Cronin. We're nearly there, I promise, we're nearly there. Just the colleagues really that have worked on it. It's been a great project. I think we'll miss it. Just to thank Maura Cronin, Ursula Callahan, Helene Bradley Davies, everybody in the Environment Department. They manage the cemetery that we've been investigating, and they've been fantastic all along. The IT Department, who don't just, I suppose, keep the computers working here, they have helped us so much in this project, and I'd like to thank them. Just Limerick City and County Council, we are fully funded, Limerick Archives and Museum, by Limerick City and County Council, and we really appreciate the support for this publication. My colleagues in the museum, Brian Hodkinson for putting up with us, Sharon Slater, Matthew Potter, and all the former staff who've worked in the archives over the year. Gráinne Higgins, I see her tonight. I'm delighted to see Alan Dukes back here as well tonight. He spent many hours in the graveyard. He's the nephew of Alan Dukes. I think I'm nearly there. I'd like to say thank you to Avid Design. Avid Design have actually designed all three of the books in the series, from Ranks, Amazing Lace and City and Cemetery, and I think they've done a fantastic job. It's a beautiful publication. They should be very proud. All the students, the over 500 students, and the many supervisors, the volunteers from Mary I. It's great to see them here tonight. I see Ruth Gowrie, Paul Foley. It's great to Paul O'Brien, sorry, here this evening. All the three books actually feature a person working on the front of them. Ranks features a mill worker, a number of mill workers. Amazing Lace features a lace maker at her frame, and this features the grave diggers digging the grave. And I think that's because we're trying to focus on the little people as much as the 45 mayors that are buried in Mount St. Lawrence. And I hope we've done that well. I hope you enjoyed the book. Thank you all for coming here tonight.